So it was Kerry 422, Cork 1-9. Kerry are the Munster Senior Football Champions once again. They have claimed their first Munster Senior Football title, of course, since 2019, and they avenge that defeat by Cork, of course, in the Munster semi-final last year. And Kerry have absolutely demolished Cork in this game. They've beaten them by 22 points in the end. I mean, it's an absolute hammering, and it's an awful performance from Cork. Like, there's no two ways about it. Like, Kerry outscored Cork 418 to 418 to 4 points from after the first water break. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, imagine if that was the final scoreline. Like, imagine it was 418 to 4 points. I mean, unbelievable stuff from Kerry. They were absolutely brilliant. They were breathtaking. They stuck to the game plan, and they deserve so much credit in this game because they were brilliant throughout the game, especially after the first quarter. I mean, they struggled for the opening 10 minutes or so, especially to get up to the pace of the game. And certainly Cork rattled them for about 10 to 15 minutes. But as we very well know, this is a game of two halves, and this is a game of 70 minutes plus. And Kerry were absolutely exceptional from the first water break onwards. I mean, they mustn't have hit too many wides in this game. I mean, the way they were playing, the way they were moving the ball, they were getting so many men forward, which was a little bit worrying at stages in the first half because it was leaving spaces in behind, which is obviously where the goal came from, with the Brian Hurley goal from a Cork point of view. And Cork were certainly creating chances in behind that Kerry fullback line in the opening 15 to 20 minutes. But certainly for Kerry, they stuck to the game plan. They stuck to the way they want to play. The likes of your Shawnee O'Shea's, your Paddy Clifford, who was absolutely tremendous. I mean, Paddy Clifford just popping up everywhere. And Kerry, like, the thing that impresses me the most about Kerry is, like, they always seem to have the right players in the right places at the right time. If Paddy Clifford's on the ball, he'll quickly offload it to Stephen O'Brien. He'll move, he'll take 2 or 3 steps, offload it then onto Sean O'Shea, who'll put it over the bar. And then whether it's Killian Spillane or Tommy Walsh coming off the bench, or these kind of players, and even the likes of your Micheál Burns and Tyg Morley's and whatnot, these players always seem to pop up in the right places at the right time. Mike Breen, Gavin White getting forward. I mean, Kerry just had absolutely everything in abundance today. And the funny thing is, like, David Clifford didn't even score, up until about like the 60th minute from a free. He didn't even have his best game today. He was actually quite poor at different stages. Picked the ball up off the ground at one stage, hit 2 chances wide, I remember. And Kerry were still unbelievable, and it does very much remind me of what it was like, what it was like for Dublin. I suppose it hasn't been like that for Dublin this year in the Leinster Championship, but in previous years for Dublin, Dean Rock could have a completely off day, and Dublin would still hammer Meath by like 20 points or something like that. And that's kind of what this was like for Kerry. They were able, 1 or 2 of their players were able to have off days, and yet they were still able to absolutely breeze through Cork as if they weren't even there. And the opening 10 minutes or so were certainly interesting, because you did think, watching this game, from the opening 10 minutes, I mean, you wouldn't have envisioned the way the game went, because, like, in the opening 10 to 15 minutes, up until the first water break, it looked like Kerry were rushing their chances. It looked like they were running out of energy. They kept kind of running into blind alleys. They seemed too focused on goals, and Cork just kept turning them over. The likes of your Sean Powers and whatnot, Kevin Flahiv as well, were doing brilliant job there. Kevin Flahiv in particular, a cornerback, was tremendous. And obviously he played a big part in overturning the ball for the Cork goal. They then obviously go on the counter-attack. Dermot O'Connor was obviously off, injured at that point. So Kerry were temporarily down to 14 men. But Cork just capitalised massively. One long ball up the top. Brian Hurley gets on the end of it and puts it into the back of the net. And certainly Cork were rattling Kerry in the opening 10 to 15 minutes. And, like, they scored 1-4 in that spell, or 1-5 actually in that spell. And when you look at it, they scored 1-9 in total. So they only scored 4 points after the first water break, which just goes to show how Cork's heads just completely dropped. They just completely lost themselves after about 15 minutes. But in the opening 10 to 15 minutes, they were brilliant, and Brian Hurley was doing well. Luke Connolly was contributing to the play, kicked a brilliant point at one stage as well. But after the first water break, their heads went completely. They were missing chances that they would normally score. And all of a sudden, I was mentioning there that Kerry were rushing chances and they were kind of panicking a bit. Suddenly, Kerry just started to find their mojo a bit. Suddenly the likes of Sean O'Shea started to get more on the score sheet. Even the likes of your Stephen O'Brien's as well. And of course, obviously, Brian O'Buglock got that goal from getting forward. And I think that's the interesting thing with Kerry as well, is they're a bit like Mayo in that kind of sense as well, where they get their cornerbacks forward, they get their wing backs forward, they overlap and they just create so much space, and it's impossible to defend. And, you know, Cork were getting some joy out of that in the opening 10 minutes because Kerry were pushing far too many players forward, and then Cork could just break on the attack. You know, there was probably more than one potential goal opportunity for Cork if they had played the right pass. But eventually, Kerry got it right, and Kerry just started to really punish Cork. And Brian O'Buglock obviously gets that goal going forward. Tom O'Sullivan kicked a brilliant point, I remember, as well. And like really from about half time, it was game over. And this game kind of reminded me of, I don't know if many people watching this watch boxing or mixed martial arts or anything like that, but sometimes you can have, you know, one fighter who expends all his energy in the opening 10 minutes trying to knock the other guy out, and then he's no energy at all left for the fight. And then slowly, as the fight goes on, the other fighter picks him apart and eventually knocks him out. And that was basically what Kerry did, because, you know, they got the third and the fourth goal, one after another. Sean O'Shea gets one, Paul Gainey as well. And before you knew it, this was game over, game, set and match. And Kerry are the Munster champions from here. And I think massive question marks have to be asked at Cork. And this has definitely been a weekend where a lot of managers have you know, received a lot of kind of backlash and whatnot. And Ronan McCarthy, in particular for Cork, like is he the right man to lead Cork forward from this point? I mean, I'll be interested to hear what Cork fans think about this one. You know, in his 3 years there since 2019, you know, relegated to Division 3. You know, fair enough. You done well in 2019, getting to the Super 8s and put it up to Kerry in the 2019 final. Beat Kerry last year. You know, nearly relegated to Division 3 again. Like when you look at how good Cork are at under 20 level, like they'll probably win the All-Ireland at under 20 level again this year. And they won it obviously 2 years ago. Like they have so many talented players coming through. Blake Murphy, Mark Cronin, not even coming off the bench there. So like you just wonder, like, you know, Cork really they need to be doing better. They shouldn't be getting beat by 20 points by Kerry. I know Kerry are, you know, probably the best team in the country right now, and they've been unbelievable this year. They completely hammered Clare. They breezed past Tipperary if they weren't even there. Put 6 past Tyrone, hammered Galway. I mean, Kerry have nearly hammered every team they've played this year other than Dublin in that league game. But you would think that, like, Cork surely, given their opening display in the opening 10 minutes, they surely should have a lot more. They really should. Jack Nolte says there, it took a while to get going, but that was sensational. Forwards great, Clifford, Pawdy stunning, and David Clifford didn't play well. Yeah, I mean, David Clifford didn't play as good as he can, but that's, in my opinion, though, that's a positive, because like the fact that, you know, it's a bit kind of like in, you know, the Tony Kelly situation with Clare. You know, if he doesn't kind of stand up or he doesn't kind of turn up in the game, or he doesn't produce his best performance, you have other hurlers who can stand up. And in this situation for Kerry, like, you know, David Clifford will come good at some point in the semi-finals of the All-Ireland. Like he'll have his moments, and like what I was saying earlier, a bit like the Dublin situation, you can afford a Con O'Callaghan at different stages to have an off game in a Leinster Championship, or a Dean Rock or a Cormac Costello or whatever, to not turn up. And, you know, because those players will turn up when it matters. And if Kerry are to win an All-Ireland, David Clifford probably will turn up when it matters in a semi-final or a final. So not even that big of a concern. Pawdy Clifford, just immense. You know, arguably footballer of the year so far. I know some people might find that a bit crazy, but I think he's definitely, so far, I mean, it's probably between himself and Darren McCurry in terms of footballer of the year so far, because Pawdy Clifford has been exceptional, like absolutely exceptional. Like, just, it's not just his points, but it's the way he links the play, he links the attack, he tracks back as well to get tackles in. Some sublime passes, like that pass in the Clare game as well for Sean O'Shea for that goal, I mean, was absolutely exceptional. His vision, his awareness is just unbelievable. So, like, for Kerry, you know, and Sean O'Shea could arguably be footballer of the year so far as well. They have a lot of players really in contention. And Paul Gainey, I think last year had a very, well, obviously they were beaten by Cork, but in the league I thought he was very quiet. And even in 2019 at different stages, he was actually very quiet. 2-1 in this game, that will do a world of confidence for him. And the fact that you're bringing, you know, Killian Spillane off the bench, who scores 2 points, and Tommy Walsh, and, you know, you've got Tony Brosnan, who doesn't even come on at all. Adrian Spillane comes off the bench. Like, just so many options all across the board for this Kerry side. And as for Cork, like, none of their bench scored at all, which really does kind of tell the sad story for Cork. Dublin would have trashed us in the first half. We were shocking. Yeah. I mean, yeah, especially in that opening 15 minutes. I mean, if Dublin were on it, and as maybe that is a bit of a worry for Kerry, because we did see that in the league, and maybe even in the Tipperary game a little bit, they started a little slow. So that maybe is something they do need to work on. Have a feeling, Sir Klopp there says, have a feeling Kerry will end up streak in August. Yeah, I mean, look, listen, as a Dublin fan myself, it's becoming harder and harder to argue the point. And look, listen, maybe Dublin go out and annihilate Kildare by something similar, and then all of a sudden, Dublin are the team that's on, the fingertip of everyone's mouths again. But certainly, for at the moment, the way Kerry have played, and the thing is, coming into this year, I would have had Clare and Cork as going into the championship anyway at a higher level than Meath, and that's not to discredit Meath. I wouldn't abide by that anymore. But when you look at it, Dublin struggled very much to get past Meath, and Kerry absolutely annihilated Clare and Cork, by a considerable distance. So, I mean, yeah, Kerry All-Ireland champions for sure. I mean, look, listen, they still have to beat Tyrone or Monaghan, and it won't be easy. I don't think it will be a demolition job like what it was if it is Tyrone in a semi-final, like what it was in the league. I think in the league game, there was nothing to play for there. Like, it was a semi-final, dead rubber. There was going to be no final. The game was played in Clarny as well. Tyrone had to travel the whole way up. So it won't be the same game, but you would still expect Kerry to come through. And it certainly is looking towards a Dublin-Kerry final, the final that very much we all expected. And at the moment, like, yeah, the fact that Dublin have injuries in their defence as well, like Owen Merchant and Johnny Cooper's had a couple of injury concerns, and obviously John Small isn't in there anymore. So with his injury this year, so like massive concern there from a Dublin point of view. And the fact that you look at Dublin's bench and Kerry's bench, it's night and day at the moment. It really, really is. But we'll have to wait and see what happens, of course, when those games come around. Fair play to Kerry. They absolutely annihilated Cork in this game. It wasn't even a contest after halftime. Cork may as well not have even shown up in the second half. And certainly massive question marks need to be asked of Ronan McCarthy. But for Kerry, they march on. And I would fully expect them now to get to an All-Ireland final. And certainly at the moment, I don't think there can be any question that they certainly are the favourites for the All-Ireland.